we started, this was the good news on the horizon. As we're doing all of this, we're trying to figure out what to do about assessments. And we hadn't started leaning anybody yet because we're like, let's just throw in more money. What's happening? And the good thing started happening. The banks started paying without the lien in place from date of sheriff's deed forward. We're like, yes, awesome. But even though that was happening in January, we were very concerned about the snow. So we took what we had saved, what little piddly amounts we had saved in our reserve operating, and moved it to operating. And I had strict instructions to Dory that whenever we went under $4,000, she needed to tell me. Because I'm thinking a $500 snow removal 3 times in a week is going to devastate our account. Okay, February continued to March, no word from Satori. The banks are paying the past due at the time of sale. We pay, lost a space there. We paid the past dues. At that point, we were very frustrated, so we liened the 20 properties owned by Satori to the tune of about $19,000. So we have an assessment that's filed with the Register of Deeds as to that amount, in hopes that if those properties sell, we're going to get them, or at some point in time, Satori is going to pay us that money. And that dates back to their sheriff's deed in June of 2008. We continued to see the other banks as the properties closed. If some of you moved in and your properties, you know at closing, there were checks cut for association dues. So we were very pleased to see those. But never ending. There was a break in the water valve at 4647, and it required emergency assistance from Don Peasky. I was out of state for the day. It was a horrific, it was just a horrible event. And Don Peasky, who's not even an owner, he's just another tenant, had to come to the rescue to, yet again, help. We had no water and sporadic water. Thank you very much. Is my voice starting to crack yet? We had no water or sporadic water in units 4552 and 4556. This happened while I was in Washington visiting our representatives for some other work that I do, and I called Andrea, who was also recuperating from surgery. And I'm like, I can't deal with this down here. Can you do X, Y, and Z, and including calling Mr. Brewer? Again, Mr. Brewer came back in. He got up to speed right quickly. He looked at that issue at that unit, didn't think it was a pump issue. But at the same time, we said, go ahead and proceed now, because Satori was starting to move people into the units on the end, and we couldn't risk 1 pump and 10 units being filled. So we had to go ahead and have that well pump fixed. So we had the well pump fixed. He no sooner gets that fixed, and he calls and he says, there's a very small, tiny leak in the tank. Well, if you've seen those very large tanks, you can't fix those. And they're from the 60s and 70s. So we had to pay him to take the tank out and put a new tank in so that we could make sure that both pumps and both tanks were working to house 10 units. And then he went back and he looked at Doug and Bob's problem, and he put a valve in or something. He fixed your valve, something, so that helps. And as far as I know, that's working now, right?
No problem.
Right, guys? Okay. Yeah, and then your board started doing the inevitable. We had to start thinking about what we were going to do and how we were going to move forward. We sent out the notice of special assessment. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. And we started setting up for the annual meeting. We started struggling with budget issues. We bantered back and forth about a lot of different things. We kept asking for volunteers to step up to the board because, you know, we all love you guys, and we all love where we live, but this has taken a lot of work. It's taken a lot of time. I can't even begin to tell you how much time it has taken of me, even since May. Every day I've had to deal with something related to the association. It is very time consuming. So we discussed getting a management company and started looking around. I have some familiarity with management companies in town, so we started looking at that. At the same time, Jan's problem with her leaks in her basement was brought to our attention. So we got bids on that, and we were kind of blown away when we got bids on that, because they were like $2 grand, $2 and $3 grand. We contacted bidders for the asphalt repairs. If you've seen the asphalt going around to the two building area, it's an absolute mess. We contacted roofers for estimates because since we all moved in, we knew at least two buildings needed the roof replaced. Definitely the one where Lindsay and Dave live, and that includes Joanne and Heather, yeah, and Doug and Bob. Don Piesky has been into their property a number of times. Can't find where it's coming from. You can just look at the back of the roof and you can see the issues with it. So we've got some estimates to show you or talk to you about on that, but we started doing that. And the long and short of it is, oh, wait a minute. Then we sent the reminder notices regarding the annual meeting so you all remember to be here. We picked the best budget that we thought was going to deal with the issues that we have to deal with, as well as, you know, put in place a management company that if nobody else wants to step forward, we're willing to stay on, but we can't do it without a management company. We can't do it. Emotionally, we are exhausted. Our time, what it takes Dory to do on a weekly basis, you know, we just need the help, or somebody else got to step forward. We met with a potential management agent regarding the proposal, and that's why we asked Terry to come in. And then on Friday, I spoke with Carrie, and he indicated that Satori has a proposal they'd like to make to us. And I said, well, you're free to come to the meeting, make that proposal. So we do have 2 presentations from them tonight for you to hear before we get into the budget and the special assessment issues. But these are some of the other basic day-to-day activities that your board of directors has been doing. Responding to lending institutions, responding to realtors. That includes everything from how many times we have to tell them the bylaws are on the webpage, send them the webpage, or send them the bylaws because they can't pull up the webpage or whatever, to what's owed on the property, to I have had to fill out I don't know how many lending institution requests. You know, and one of the requests is the homeowners association has been operating by the owners for over a year. Well, no. You know, so it's, you go through that whole thing, and as much as it's frustrating for those of you that were having problems getting lending, you know, we're not going to lie. Another issue is always on there is, does any owner own more than 20% of the properties? Well, yes, Tori owns 40, 41, 42%, something like that. So, you know, you've got that issue. So that banks are frustrated because they are having problems lending because we're not meeting HUD requirements, and I'm going, I can't help you, it is what it is.